Hello, and welcome back to our search for the best storyteller in Are You Afraid of the Dark? In this video, we'll be tackling Season 3, so if you haven't seen the previous videos, then I highly recommend you give those a watch, as we will be referencing some episodes and story moments that we highlighted in the previous seasons. Not to mention, the show is incredible, so you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't get to see the entire series. But with that said, let's talk about Season 3. The concept of this show remains the same. A group of misfit teens get together and take turns telling each other scary stories in a club that they've named the Midnight Society. But we do start off the season with some pretty sad news.
Well, friends come and friends go. And I'm sorry to say that two of our good friends have gone. David and Kristen's families have moved. We won't be hearing their stories anymore, but they'll always be a part of the Midnight Society.
Two more of the original members are gone, and personally, I was really sad to see Kristen go. Her stories were always my favorite. The tales of the Hungry Hounds, the Prom Queen, and the Frozen Ghost are among the greats in my mind, so it did make me a little bit sad to see her go. As for David, his stories never caught me like some of the others. I did love, of course, the tale of the shiny red bicycle, but I am a little bit sad to see him go. So now, for the first time in the series, we'll be getting two new members to this storytelling club. The first is a younger kid named Tucker, who happens to be none other than Gary's younger brother. This introduces a whole new dynamic to the Midnight Society, as we see Tucker pestering Gary and the other kids fairly often. He's got that annoying little brother trope down. I did find him genuinely annoying at times, which I really can't blame him for. In fact, it's kind of praiseworthy, since that's literally the character that he was going for. Not to mention, he does get less annoying in later seasons, as he gets more established with the group and matures a little bit. And as for his stories, in this season, he tends to tell tales that seem to parody other works, usually giving fun twists to stories that may feel otherwise familiar. And the second new member is a girl named Sam. Her dynamic within the group is to be a somewhat tomboyish heartthrob. Both Gary and Frank get a crush on her right away, and it's really funny to see them try and flirt and compete against each other to get her attention. As for her stories, she only tells two this season, and they're both really different, so it's hard to nail down what her style is with this season alone. So we'll revisit this in the future and see if we can figure out what her storytelling approach is. Otherwise, there are still four of the original Midnight Society members in the group. Gary, who wows us with tales of misunderstood magic and imagination. Betty Ann, who tells terrifying tales of cursed objects. Kiki, who gives scary twists on loved ones lost and lost souls left unrested. And Frank, who only gets one story this season, but scares us with a horrifying story about soup. So far, this series has been amazing, and I'm happy to say that the trend continues. Season 3 has some of my favorite episodes so far. So, enough build-up. If you end up enjoying this video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It's a little thing, but it does end up helping the video and this channel as a whole a lot more than you might think. And now, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I ask the question, who tells the best scary story in Are You Afraid of the Dark? Season 3. To start off the season, the newcomer Tucker tells his initiation story. This one is a play on the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and it's called The Tale of the Midnight Ride. If you're not familiar with the story of the Headless Horseman, well, Tucker does give a quick synopsis of that legend. The Headless Horseman was a dude who got decapitated by a cannonball. And then years later, a school teacher named Ichabod Crane was walking in the woods, and the Headless Horseman chased him, but Ichabod took a wrong turn, and instead of making it to the Bridge of Souls, which is a bridge that the horseman couldn't cross, he ended up getting lost and losing his head to the horseman. There's definitely more to the legend, but that's the gist of it. But as for this story, it takes place in modern day. Well, in the 90s, but it was modern at the time. And we follow a guy named Ian who just moved into the town of Sleepy Hollow. He's trying to make some new friends and instantly gets a crush on a girl named Katie, but her ex-boyfriend Brad is a little bit of a bully, so he's not all about Ian trying to rizz up his former girl. I know we just started, but before we go any further, we have to talk about Ian. In season 1, there were some pretty rough actors. I pointed out a few, but I think that Buzz from the very first episode was probably the worst of the group.
I'm not a loser, and we're not lost. Look, there's the ridge we came up on. We can circle back and take the red trail. Man, this is whacked.
Season 2 was an incredible improvement. I really didn't notice any bad actors in the group, except for maybe Pete from the Midnight Madness, but that was mostly just him being really desperate to finally kiss a girl. I don't think it was so much the acting as it was a poorly written script for that character.
They loved it. No one wanted a refund.
Yes! We got a hit!
Yeah.
Let's hug again!
But here we are in season 3, and freaking Ian is so hard to watch. He got the wombo combo of a terribly written character and a terribly acted character. For the acting, I can always give a pass because this was likely his first role, and he's still just a kid. He does come across pretty uncomfortable when he's trying to be cool and funny, and at times it feels like he's got Tourette's in the way that he's constantly fidgeting. But he's a kid, so like I said, we can forgive him for that. Who I can't forgive is the person that wrote Ian's character, because it's just plain terrible. He's got so many tics and moments that are desperately trying to be played off as cool, but just come across as, like, beyond pathetic. The very first time Ian sees Katie, she drops her decorations, and when Ian sees Brad isn't helping, this is his reply.
I was gonna help.
If you want to help, you can get this fixed pronto. And bring it inside, because we'll be setting up for the dance.
Or at a Halloween dance, he sees Brad trying to talk to Katie, so he's gotta go in and be the I don't think she wants to talk to you guy.
Listen, just let me...
Call me crazy, but I don't think she wants to talk to you.
It's okay, Ian.
Excuse me?
I think you should leave her alone.
Oh.
Then at one point he says this.
Listen, would you walk me home?
'Tis the one thing that would make this horrible night worthwhile, my lady. Take thee, my muddy arm.
Freaking what? And then this is it. I promise I'll stop ragging on a kid actor from 30 years ago after this one. But he calls Katie Toots at one point.
Let's get you home. Let's.
Like, what? I don't know what they were thinking with this character, but he is by far the worst written and acted kid that we've seen in over a season. Maybe the worst in the series so far. But yeah, let's talk about the tale of the Midnight Ride. So for initiation, Brad makes Ian walk into the woods to the Bridge of Souls so that he can retrieve a pumpkin. But surprise, Brad dresses up like the Headless Horseman without a horse and scares Ian, so it was all just a prank. But Katie doesn't care, and she sticks with Ian, and then they walk home together, only to see a mysterious stranger on a horse riding in the woods. He asks for directions before they finally ask him his name.
Who are you?
Crane. Ichabod Crane, the new schoolmaster. Good evening.
So, that's weird. Ian and Katie go back to the school to get their bikes, and they see the shadow of a Headless Horseman on the wall. But then when Ian goes to see what's making the shadow, there's nothing there.
Say what?
Then the shadow comes to life and outrides the Headless Horseman. I loved this scene. This effect is so fun and kind of cool. It was great. He chases the kids, and Katie realizes that they have to complete the legend in order to survive, so they'll have to try and cross the Bridge of Souls. Just as the bridge is in sight, Katie trips, but the horseman seems to just be after Ian, so he continues forward. It's kinda silly because in this final stretch they pull a Zack Snyder and just go slow-mo for a few seconds. It stretches for so long. But as they cross the bridge, the Headless Horseman, he explodes. Okay, so it's not an explosion. He just like vanishes in orange, but it really does kind of look like an explosion. Ian and Katie talk on the bridge for a second before they see Ichabod again, and he rides off with a few final words.
Happy Halloween.
I have to say, Tucker is not off to a great start. This episode, it's rough at best. In this series, there aren't many episodes that I genuinely don't like. Like, even those that I've rated low, I still enjoyed them. This whole ranking idea is just me being hypercritical about a series that I think is incredible pretty much all around. But this is one of the few exceptions. This is one of the very few episodes that I just plain don't like. The story had the potential to be okay with the play on The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, but the initial plotline of the bully kid trying to prank Ian to win over the girl kinda took away from the reveal that the legend was actually true. Plus, the rough acting just took all the focus away from the story. I'm gonna give this one a 1 out of 10. The scares were okay, but a little bit more downplayed than I would have liked. The bully prank was an alright jump scare, but I did really like the intensity that started up when the Headless Horseman actually arrived. Plus, his initial appearance was kinda spooky, and was probably my favorite part of the episode. I think it's a kind of scary 3 out of 10. For bonus points, like I said, I didn't see a lot that I loved in this episode. It's not my favorite. But the horse coming out of the shadow was pretty cool, so I'll give this episode its one and only bonus point for that. So 1 out of 5. That leaves Tucker's very first story, The Tale of the Midnight Ride, and the very first episode of this season with a really rough score of 5 out of 25. It's not the best start, but I've still got high hopes for Tucker. While episode 1 was a little bit disappointing, I'm pretty sure that the second story will immediately redeem the season. I've had a few people tell me that this is their favorite episode, and after rewatching it, I can definitely tell why. This one is told by Kiki, and it's called The Tale of Apartment 214. Stacy and her mom, oh, and their dog Bugsy, can't forget Bugsy of course, all move into a new apartment. It's pretty interesting because the reason that they move is because Stacy's mom and dad are separating. Throughout this episode, there are little clues and hints as to how their relationship is going, and by the end it seems like they might be back on track to maybe get back together. But it plays this idea of a broken relationship really realistically, even though it is just in the background of the main story. The apartment that they move into is really small, and as they're moving, Stacy sees the door to apartment 214 crack open and the neighbor inside spying on the new tenants. In the night, Stacy is awake and she hears a knock on the door, but when she looks in the hall, there's no one there. But then she hears the door to 214 click shut. She goes over to see what's up, but another girl from apartment 212 introduces herself as Angela and tells Stacy that no one lives in 214. Since Stacy and Angela are around the same age, they say that they'll hang out sometime, so a friendship is in the works. One day when she comes home from school, Stacy sees an old lady pop her head out of the window of apartment 214. And I don't know if they meant for this scene to be as scary as it was. The old lady just hiding behind Stacy's mom, who's got it going on. I couldn't hold out. I know everybody wanted that joke the second that they heard Stacy's mom. I'm sorry. Okay, it's been like 2 minutes into this episode. When we see her, it acts like this really eerie jump scare, but it's also in the middle of the day, and a daytime jump scare is a really special kind of horror to me. Like, being scared in the middle of the day is so much different than in the middle of the night. It's way more impressive. Stacy goes over to the apartment, and this time the door opens, and she meets the old lady who lives in 214, and her name is Madeline.
It's about time you came to see me.
Madeline is really lonely, so Stacy comes over fairly often to visit, and they quickly become friends. And one day, Madeline tells Stacy that she used to live with her nephew, but he kicked her out of the house one day even though he promised that she could live with him forever.
I never had children of my own. Frank promised that I could always live with them, but When his family grew, he got tired of taking care of an old woman, so he asked me to leave.
He broke his promise? Just like that?
That's when I moved in here.
I've got a whole rant about this lady, but I'll save it for the end. I just want to prepare you because while I really do like this episode, I hate this lady. I really hate this lady. And no, I can't get started on this yet. Not yet. It's at the end. The rant is stewing. So after a little bit of time, one day Madeline asks Stacy if she would be sure to visit the following night, because that night is some kind of anniversary for her that she doesn't want to be alone on. So Stacy promises that she'll be there. But oh no, the next day Angela from 212 offers Stacy a ticket to the Battle of the Bands. So having to choose between a concert or an old lady, Stacy takes the ticket and heads out.
Free ticket.
You coming or not?
Okay, let me tell Mom.
When she gets home, Stacy hears Madeline freaking sobbing. It's pretty creepy as she enters the dark apartment and sees the old lady by the window. And the second Stacy flips on the lights, the apartment is suddenly empty and Madeline is gone. It's a pretty spooky scene. In fact, there's a lot of really good scary moments that have been building in this episode. The music is constantly this eerie chime that put me on edge from the very minute the episode started. And this is just the beginning. Stacy runs to tell her mom that Madeline is gone now, and they head to the apartment manager who says that no one has lived in 214 for years. In fact, every tenant that he's tried to get to live there has only lasted a few days before moving out because something scares them. I wonder what that could mean, Time passes, but Stacy doesn't see or hear from Madeline, and she's pretty sad because she knows that she broke her promise and now she'll never have a chance to apologize. Or so she thought, because one night she hears a knock on the door and sees Madeline through the peephole. Only she vanishes once Stacy opens the door. She goes over to 214 and finds a painting on the floor, and after looking, everything in the apartment reappears, including Madeline.
Madeline! What's going on?
You promised to visit me. I didn't want to be alone on that day. That day is the worst day, and you didn't come.
It turns out that the day that Stacy promised to visit was Madeline's 10th anniversary from
The day I died.
Yeah, you didn't see that coming. She's a ghost. Big twist there, very impossible to predict twist. From here on, everything is just straight up horrifying. Stacy runs back to her apartment, but a note is slipped under the door asking why she broke her promise. She backs away only to see Madeline appear behind her curtains, and when she runs out of the apartment, the power goes out and she's left in darkness. She watches as Bugsy walks into the hall and then enters apartment 214, and she's gotta save the pooch, so she follows him in a second later. This shot is probably my favorite in the entire episode. As Stacy walks past the mirror, we see nothing in the reflection, but when she moves back, Madeline appears. It's a good bit of spooky camera work. Stacy sees Madeline and tries to apologize, but the dead lady just isn't having it, until Stacy mentions that she broke her promise so that she could make friends with Angela. And then Madeline she's just fine with it now. She gets all mopey and says that she won't haunt Stacy anymore.
I've got nowhere to go. Nobody wants me. I'm not welcome anywhere.
But Stacy is too kind, and then she comes up with an idea. We see the next day that Stacy and her mom have moved into apartment 214 since it's way bigger than the apartment they were in, and the manager even gives them a very cheap price since nobody's been able to live there before. And now they live with the ghost of an old lady, and I mean, that's it. Like I said, this is a great episode, but man, I can't stand Madeline. And it's not because she's a bad actress or she's poorly written, it's because I've met so many people that are just like her, and it drives me up the wall. The nephew broke his promise because his family was getting bigger, and from what we saw of Madeline, she's a handful, to say the least. Yeah, she got kicked out, but maybe be a little bit introspective and you'll figure out that you were the problem in that situation. I mean, all the proof we need is in this episode. A little girl broke her promise so that she could hang out with friends her own age. And what does this loony old bat do? She sobs with her door wide open and then haunts an apology out of her. The note being slipped under the door is just the icing on the woe is me cake that Madeline is dishing out. And then she has the gall to say that it's important to make friends. And the worst part is, in the end, she still gets her way. She gets her cake and she eats it too, and it drives me crazy. Oh, rant over. This is a great episode. The story I'd say is like a 7 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for the scares because it was pretty scary. And then let's give 3 bonus points for a realistic family relationship dynamic, the music, and the mirror scene, which gives the tale of apartment 214 a total of 18 out of 25. So Kiki killed it, and Madeline deserves to be alone. Next episode. In episode 3, Sam gets to tell her very first story. It's also the episode where Sam's introduced to the Midnight Society, and both Frank and Gary just instantly fall in love with her. And it made me laugh because Tucker has this line.
Oh, the babe's got bite.
The line, it just doesn't feel like it fit in this show, but it was really funny. So let's see if Sam is going to be a good replacement for the crew with her very first story, The Tale of Watcher's Woods. This one takes place in a summer camp with a girl named Sarah, who has every merit badge, but no friends, and a girl named Kelly, who has no merit badges and tons of friends. They're polar opposites of each other, you see. Sarah really wants to be here, and Kelly just wants the 2-week camp to be over. They end up as roommates, but Kelly's a jerk to Sarah the entire time. Sarah notices a plaque on the wall with a picture of 3 missing girls with 3 whistles underneath with an engraving that says, "Never enter Watcher's Woods. Ever." So, naturally, Sarah asks what Watcher's Woods is, and Kelly and the crew tell her that it's a mysterious part of the forest that moves around. A demon called the Watcher guards the roaming woods, and everyone who enters either never comes back or they come back crazy. But I'm sure that's just a legend, and we'll never hear anything more about the Watcher or the woods, right? The next day, Kelly and Sarah are forced to partner up to go into the woods and work on their nature merit badge.
So, where do we start?
Start by keeping out of my face.
This part was so wild. As they're walking, Kelly just pulls out a cigarette and says that she wants to smoke. It's sorta out of nowhere, but Sarah just yoinks her lighter away and they keep hiking. A bit later, Kelly just wants to go back to the camp, so she ditches Sarah and steals her backpack for some reason, and then she heads back to camp alone. But as she's walking, the trail just disappears, and as she puts down the packs, they vanish right before her eyes.
This is not happening.
It's a pretty creepy scene as she realizes that she's lost in what must be Watcher's Woods, and the music turns into this strange chanting with scratching violins. But not all hope is lost, because Kelly finds her way to some glowing green trees. So that's gotta be safety. Only the first thing she sees is a freaking decapitated ram's head with the eyeballs and all still in there. I don't know how they got away with showing this in the episode, especially on Nickelodeon. Like, it's not bloody, but this is straight up gore still. We follow her as she walks into this strange camp that has a tattered tent and floating thingies as well. Then Kelly walks into a trap and she's caught by 3 old hags who cackle and then tie her up and threaten to shoot her with a burning arrow if Kelly doesn't give them their missing whistles. They make it pretty obvious that these 3 old ladies are the 3 missing girls from years ago. And they think that Kelly was a girl who tricked them into getting lost and then stole their whistles. So Kelly tries to say that she doesn't know these ladies, but they shoot her with the arrow anyway. Fortunately, it does just go straight through her, but they did technically shoot her, and that's also just crazy in this episode. Kelly then puts the clues together, and she also realizes that these hags are talking about the whistles that are hanging over the fireplace in the camp. They need the whistles so that they can release their souls from Watcher's Woods. So they agree to let Kelly go and grab them if she promises to come back. Only, psych.
Oh, dearie? We don't believe you.
I love that little prank by the old hags. They just get Kelly's hopes up and crush them in a matter of seconds. It's very well done. So now, let's go check back in on Sarah. She's also now lost in the woods, but immediately she hears someone whispering her name, and when she looks at a tree, she sees the Watcher appear there.
Welcome to my woods.
This dude is so scary and so rad, and Sarah just runs away until she finds that same glowing green place that Kelly found. She sneaks in to try and rescue Kelly, but the hags see her right away, and so she ends up making a deal to go back and get the whistles, but she'll have to return by sunrise, or else the hags will kill and eat Kelly. Also, they put a bucket of mice in the cage with Kelly because Kelly hates mice. There's just a little bit of extra torture for their captured Girl Scout. As Sarah is running towards the camp, she's stopped by a freaking rotting human head. Dude, this episode is wild. I have no idea how they got away with it. It's so scary. The head transforms into the Watcher, and he says that he really wants Sarah's soul. But she threatens him with Kelly's cigarette lighter, and then he lets her leave. Sarah grabs the whistles and returns to the camp, but we get a little bit more horror here, because she drops one of the whistles inside of the rodent bucket, and the hags just don't believe that she got all 3. So they strap Sarah onto a jagged guillotine. So now Kelly has to face her fears and reach into the mice bucket and grab the whistle, and when she does, the hags all disappear, and their souls are set free. And also the cage Kelly is in and the guillotine that Sarah was strapped to also disappear, so the day is saved. Kelly and Sarah become instant friends because trauma brings people together, and they return to the camp safe and sound, and in desperate need of therapy. So, someone needs to check in on Sam because there's no way that this girl is right in the head. Dude, this episode is so good and so messed up. All I've got to say is welcome to the Midnight Society. First things first, the story. I definitely liked it. It has some issues with the pacing because it tries to fit so much into its runtime that I don't feel like anything got as much time as it probably deserved, especially the Watcher. He was played up to be this crazy demon, but we only got a few sparse scenes with him in it, and I really wish we got more. But even with the pacing issue, it's a great time. The lost Girl Scouts turned witches, the girls getting lost in the woods, the haunting of the Watcher, and the resolution that forces Kelly to face her fears and save herself and Sarah. It's a solid 7 out of 10. But man, the scares in this episode were fantastic. I think Betty Ann's gotta watch out because Sam is after that horror crown. The music, the atmosphere of being lost in the woods, the haunting calls of the Watcher, the hags, the mouse bucket, a child getting shot by a flaming arrow, another child nearly being beheaded, the freaking ram's head and rotten human head. Guys, I think for the scares, we just got our very first 10 out of 10. I don't know what to say. This episode was scary, and I can't believe what they got away with. It was incredible. I'll give it some bonuses as well. One for the gore. I'm just blown away that it was in here at all. It's still just wild to me. Another point we'll give for the sets here, mostly the Hag's camp with the floating thingies and the weird traps and the green glow. It was a really fun place for a horror story. And a final point to Sarah for stopping Kelly from smoking, because ever since I saw the PSAs, I've always wanted to conquer the smoky monster.
Why do they smoke?
Why don't they care?
Humans are smart, but cats are smarter.
Listen to cats, you men and women. Take care of your lungs. They're only human.
So 3 out of 5 bonus points, which leaves Sam's first story, The Tale of Watcher's Woods, with an incredible score of 20 out of 25. And I look forward to seeing what else she's got in store for us later on. Episode 4 is time for Tucker's redemption. I didn't love his first story, but now the only place he can go is up, right? The episode is called The Tale of the Phone Police, and it really is a fun one. It acts as a light play on George Orwell's 1984, specifically the idea of the thought police, only now with a much more kid-friendly tone, aided by the realization that all adults are incredibly stupid. With this episode, we mostly follow a kid named Jake and his friend Chris. They're of the age of prank calling, asking people if their refrigerators are running or asking stores if they've got Prince Albert in a can, only to rip the rug right out from under them with the old 1-2 punchline. It's truly a classic age in comedy. But the older sister Annie kills their fun with a warning about the phone police.
You're not gonna tell Mom and Dad, are you?
Forget Mom and Dad. You're gonna get tagged by the phone police, you zero. Phone police?
She's also drinking a big old glass of green in this scene. I just thought that was weird. It's not important at all. Anyway, the phone police is a secret phone security organization that takes people away who abuse the rules of the phone, with the most egregious action being prank calls. Chris takes this story to heart and goes home for the day, but Jake is just getting started. He digs through a phone book until he finds a number that only has 6 numbers to it, and after calling, he hears a staticky voice pleading for help on the other end of the line.
Hello?
He hangs up, but that number just calls him back all throughout the night, each time begging for help. It's pretty creepy. The next morning, Jake and Chris are walking when a nearby payphone begins to ring, and answering it, Jake hears that same voice. So now, freaked out and needing answers, the boys head straight to the phone company. I love this, man. Just one company for all the phones with a huge statue of a phone in its center. It's such a kid's vision of how big companies would actually work. It's just simplified but weirdly vast at the same time. They're told to go down to the records department, but Chris has a bad feeling about this place, so he crouches down and hides just before the phone attendant man steps out to assist Jake. When the man sees the number that he's been calling, he realizes that Jake must be a prank caller. So, as an honorable member of the phone police, he arrests the child and throws him into phone jail.
Hey! Let me out of here! What is this?
Figured it out? I know.
because you're a real smart kid. You got here quicker than anyone ever has.
But Chris is able to escape without being noticed, so he runs to Annie for help. Only, that doesn't go very well. When he gets to Jake's house, he's surprised to find that Annie doesn't remember ever even having a brother, and heading into Jake's room, he finds that it's no longer a bedroom at all. So all traces of Jake have just been erased.
Are you gonna get out of here or do I call the cops?
Meanwhile, Jake is stuck in his cell with a phone that can only receive phone calls, so he can't call out for help. Not that anyone would remember him. But Chris thinks quick and searches the phone book until he finds Jake's new phone number, and he knows it because it only has 6 numbers. He calls Jake, and together they come up with a plan and begin the segment of this episode that I call Smart Kids versus Big Dumb Adults. It's a very creative name. It took me a long time to come up with. So here's how it goes. Step 1 in the plan is for Chris to sneak into the phone company. He does this by pretending to get on an elevator while a receptionist isn't looking, and then he sneaks over to the door and he just walks right in. Step 2 is to call Jake, but make sure that Jake doesn't answer so that the phone police old guy will get all mad and enter the phone police cell hallway. Step 3 is to sneak behind the old guy and then wait for him to open Jake's cell and push him over so that they can escape together. And it all goes perfectly well. With alarms blaring, the boys run around the hallways with the phone police right on their heels. They climb out of the liminal underground through a manhole cover, but are still chased by the phone police cars. But the boys are smart and adults are dumb, so they easily outmaneuver the cars and make it to Jake's house. Inside, now Jake's room is back to normal, and Annie remembers her brother again. They do get a visit from a pizza delivery guy who is secretly a member of the phone police, but that's really all that there is to this episode. And that's the end. Tucker's second episode was leagues better than his first. I love the whole concept of the phone police with the strange, light, sci-fi, dystopian horror vibes that they gave off. The warning of the police is a pretty good setup that ends up getting delivered on when the boys go to the phone company for help. So it is a bit of a twist that turns out that the phone company are actually the bad guys. And then the whole prison escape bit, it's just pure fun. From them sneaking around to the chase sequence, it's all fantastic. I think the story earns an 8 out of 10. I will say, it wasn't super scary, but it had some good moments and a little bit of psychological horror that I think landed really well. The scene of Jake getting his calls from the static number was pretty freaky, and him getting arrested was a good bit of horror. But the whole concept of your life being erased and your friend only existing in your memory is one of those things that probably won't scare you outright, but it's the kind of horror that sticks with you and makes you think. I'll give this one a 6 out of 10 for those scares. For a few bonus points, I did love the phone company through and through, so a point there. And another for the psychological dread that was just sprinkled throughout the entire thing. So 2 out of 5 bonus points, which means Tucker definitely redeemed himself in my eyes and scores The Tale of the Phone Police with a total of 16 out of 25. Episode 5 gives us Betty Ann's very first story of the season, so let's all be brave together as she tells us the tale of the Dollmaker. We follow a girl named Melissa who's visiting her aunt and uncle for the summer, and she's really excited to hang out with her friend Susan like they do every summer. Only, when Melissa asks to go play, she's told that Susan and her family moved away. Now, incredibly sad and very bored, Melissa is sitting on a swing when she notices the curtains in Susan's old house are moving. She heads over to investigate, but all she finds is an old dollhouse in the attic. The dollhouse is really intricate, and as Melissa's looking inside the small rooms, one of the doors slams shut and scares her. She falls and knocks a sheet from the wall, which uncovers a door in the attic that should lead to the outside. Something about this door calls to Melissa, and she wanders near and would have opened it, but her aunt comes in and grabs her for dinner. While walking back home, the aunt lets something slip.
It's just that I'd rather you kept away after what happened.
That's
Sister, what? What happened? Aunt Sally, what happened?
Melissa catches on that the aunt is hiding something and pesters her until she finally spills the beans.
I suppose you had to find out sooner or later. Melissa, the Hendersons didn't just move away. Last winter, Susan disappeared.
What do you mean disappeared?
No one knows what happened to her. One minute she was there, the next, she was gone.
If that wasn't enough, later that night, Melissa overhears her aunt and uncle.
Maybe not, but she said it pretty clearly. It was the house that got her. That's what she said.
So now Melissa knows that Susan is missing and that her disappearance had something to do with the house. So that night, when she's woken up and notices that the lights are on in Susan's house, what does she do? Well, she goes over there, alone of course, and she walks straight to the dollhouse before she realizes that a light is shining from the keyhole of that strange door. This time, she walks over to it and opens the door. But instead of leading outside, it opens to a brightly lit hallway, and Melissa sees Susan walking around inside and shouting as if she were lost. Melissa calls to her, but Susan doesn't seem to hear her. So Melissa is about to take a step into the hallway when she's suddenly tackled to the ground by her uncle. That would be so funny if this episode just ended here. Just a Dark Souls "you died" scream. He just squished her or whatever. But no, after helping Melissa back up, the uncle shows her that she was just about to walk out of the attic and fall to her death. So, good save, Unc. And now comes the part of the story where nobody believes Melissa's story about seeing Susan. So it's all up to her to try and save her friend despite the obvious danger that it will put her in. Melissa sneaks back over to Susan's house, this time with a hammer and a ball of string in hand. And it's so funny how lame of a break-in scene she has. It's so weirdly quiet, and it just takes a little bit too long. It's perfect form all around, really. She goes back to the big strange door and once again sees the hallway, but this time she ties the string to the doorknob and carefully steps inside. To her relief, she doesn't plummet to her death, but she immediately notices that things are a little bit strange here. The furniture is weird and disproportionate, and as the room begins to rumble, she's able to look outside and watch as her aunt steps into the room, only she's much larger now, which leads Melissa to the correct conclusion.
The dollhouse. I'm in the dollhouse.
As her aunt walks away, Melissa finds Susan and, well, she's not looking too good.
What's wrong with you? You look just like a doll. But how? What's happened to you? You turned into a doll. The dollhouse did this to you?
Half of her face is now porcelain, and it's creepy how she just stares off with distant eyes. She mumbles something about the attic, so Melissa follows her string back, only to realize that her exit door has vanished. But then she remembers that this dollhouse should also have an attic, and she finds a door hidden behind a large shelf. Unable to pull it down alone, she goes back to Susan, but, well, she's not gonna be much help.
I'll try again.
So then Melissa just goes back and she just pulls the shelf down. She couldn't do it before, but I guess she got stronger from the walk back and forth. She drags Susan upstairs, but the door in the dollhouse attic opens up to the outside, so stepping in should be a fall to their deaths. But then Melissa uses some kind of logic, and I'm not gonna lie, I could not follow it. She says that the dollhouse is inside the real house, so the dollhouse door should open to the inside of the house and not the outside of the house, but the dollhouse door is opening to the outside, so it can't be real, so that means that they should be able to just step through. Does that make sense to you? Because even after saying it, I'm completely lost. But fortunately, Melissa was right, and they stepped through the door, and now it's a portal to the real world. So Melissa and Susan are back, and this is where the story ends.
That very night, Melissa's uncle,
burned the dollhouse in a big bonfire in the backyard. As it went up in flames, Melissa wondered where the door in the Hendersons' attic would lead, now that there was no dollhouse left. The end.
Yeah. Where would it lead to?
I'm of two minds of this episode because I did enjoy it, but I also think it's one of Betty Ann's weaker episodes. It does have her usual flair of being a weird and spooky story, but I felt like this one had a lot of filler that made things seem to drag a little bit. She's called up to the dollhouse like 3 times before finally going inside, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it does end up being over half of the episode. When we finally get inside the dollhouse, we only spend a few minutes there before Melissa solves 2 really quick problems and they just skedaddle out of there. And then it's just over. I would have liked to spend a little bit more time inside the dollhouse, maybe feel like they were actually stuck inside for a few minutes longer before Melissa stumbled upon that exit door. But with what we got, I'd say the story is a middle of the line 5 out of 10. There are some really good scary moments in this. The scares are mostly at the end, and they end up being small scenes used for shock value or to ingrain a feeling of existential dread into their child audience. I think the scariest part is Susan. The way she stares off and her hand detaching is really freaky. But I think the majority of the scares were relying on us to see Melissa and Susan as being stuck in the house. We're supposed to be afraid that Melissa will begin to transform into a doll just like Susan, but we only see one small glimpse of this, and then it's never showed again. So the fear of being stuck sort of peters out a little bit due to the quick pacing. I think it could have been one of the scariest episodes if it had a little bit more time. But still, I think I've got to give this one a 7 out of 10 for the scares. For a couple of bonus points, I did love the dollhouse set, so we'll definitely give a point there. And I thought it was really funny when the uncle tackled Melissa to the ground, so he's earned a point as well. I think I'll do one more for Susan. She acted amazing and the makeup was slight, but used really well and gave the impression of her transforming into a doll. So, I mean, great stuff all around there. So that's going to be 3 out of 5 bonus points, which will put the tale of the Dollmaker at a total of 15 out of 25. Episode 6 is another Betty Ann story, this one covering the potential and the danger that imagination can create, while also giving us a character that has a haircut that might be worse than Pete from The Tale of the Captured Souls. This is the tale of the Bookish Babysitter. As you might suspect, this one stars a new babysitter in town named Belinda, that all of the parents seem to be raving about. But right away we're given some clues that she's got a little bit more going on besides just sitting on infants. She seems to predict the future when being asked about a babysitting job, and she suspiciously carries a book with her as she leaves from a job well done. She's also wearing a star cloak and, yeah, her haircut. Well, it's a style. it's a style. That's as much as I can say about that. The job tonight will be to babysit a boy named Ricky, who hates babysitters and just wants to watch TV and be left alone. He's very relatable in that aspect.
A babysitter? Mom, I'm 12 years old.
Exactly.
When he and Belinda meet, things don't go his way, as she stands in front of the TV, and when he still won't stop watching, she takes the remote and makes it magically disappear.
It's time to get to know each other.
2 things to note here are, first, Ricky's t-shirt. They say he's wearing a shirt from a metal band, but it's clearly just one of those iron-on images that would flake off if you ever got it wet or accidentally washed it. And the second is that Belinda promises that if Ricky will read with her for just a few minutes, then she'll leave him alone to do whatever he wants for the rest of the night. And of course, Ricky agrees to those terms. As he begins to read, the lights start flashing, and he thinks that he hears a knocking on the front door, just like the knocking described in the book. But then he just gets bored and decides to swap to another story. This time he reads about a witch, and we see a shadow appear behind him, followed by a gnarled hand. But fortunately, Ricky is still learning to read, so as he tries to sound out a word, the story is stopped and the hand falls away. But once again, Ricky just gets bored and decides to swap stories.
You know, once you start a book, you really should finish it.
Yeah, sure.
Despite that warning, Ricky decides it's time to stop reading and he goes to play some video games in his room.
I'm not reading any more of your stupid books.
Another great spooky moment happens as Ricky is heading to his room, and we see someone open the door at the end of the hall and watch him before they disappear. While he's playing games, Ricky thinks that Belinda has followed him into his room, but when he turns around to tell her to get out, he's barely able to dodge as a sword-wielding knight comes out of nowhere and slashes down at him. He runs from his room but is followed by a ghost, and this little chase is such a perfect bit of horror. I love this scene, and I love how they use dark lace to give the ghost his little wispy effect. It's so stylized and scary. Oh man, like I said, I just loved it. Ricky finds Belinda, and he sees that she's burning the books that he was reading earlier. And when he asks why, she fills him in on what's going on.
Forget the stupid books.
Don't you see? They came from books.
So destroying the books should put the knight and the ghost back into their stories. Or so we think, for like a few seconds. Because just before Ricky burns the books completely, another Belinda bursts into the room, and we find out that the first Belinda wasn't Belinda at all.
Use your imagination back! I was afraid this was gonna happen.
I am such a fan of everything about this ghoul man, by the way. He's so goofy and scary at the same time, and his costumes are hilarious in his reveals. Like here, when he shares Belinda's haircut at clothes while also being a full-grown man ghoul thingy. He's just so great. So Ricky and the real Belinda run into another room and lock the doors. Belinda says that burning books was actually a terrible idea because now they can't read the stories, and Ricky will have to create an ending using his own imagination if he wants these stories to return to their books. Oh yeah, that's another thing. He started reading multiple books, so now there's multiple beings that are attacking them now. He tries a few pretty lame and unimaginative endings. One just trying to say that the monsters all left them alone, and another by trying to manifest an Uzi from his mind, but that doesn't work. He then notices that Belinda is carrying a red book with a blank cover. As he flips through the pages, he suddenly is transported into the world of this unnamed story, and as he speaks and moves, the blank pages inside begin to fill out with his actions and words.
I don't get it. What's the big deal, he said. Then Ricky's voice trailed off. I just said that.
Ricky finds that he's trapped in a dungeon inhabited only by ancient human bones and, unfortunately, the knight that attacked him earlier. The knight attacks again, and as Ricky dodges, he reads in the book that the knight was left here to guard the king's tomb, and will only stop his duty once he sees a certain sigil. As the knight raises his sword, Ricky realizes that it looks familiar, and he uncovers his shirt with the metal band that's totally real on it. And the knight stops his attack and then collapses into nothing but armor.
Wow, cool.
With that danger over, a little girl steps from the shadows and asks Ricky to help her escape. But once again, Ricky looks to the book and realizes that this little girl isn't a little girl at all.
Or another story. You're not a little girl. You're the... Put down the book! Get away from me!
The ghoul's looking good here again, but only for a second, as Ricky thinks fast and uses the sword to cut him right in half, and I love Ricky's reaction when he does this. With the ghoul and the knight defeated, there's only one more story character to face. The ghost man hovers into the dungeon, but he doesn't actually attack Ricky. He just goes over to the ancient tomb of the king, and we realize that this was actually the spirit of the king all along, and Ricky's actions have allowed the king to finally find his peace. He kneels and offers the king the sword, and as he does, the world fades away, and we hear Belinda reading Ricky this very story.
Story's almost over.
Back in the real world, they finish reading together, and looking at the book, They see that the title has filled out and the author apparently shares Ricky's name. His mom comes home and Belinda leaves with another baby sat upon and another book in her collection. I am such a big fan of this episode. It's unique and it's scary and it's imaginative, and it leaves a good bit of mystery as to what Belinda's true goals are with these stories. I think the story flows incredibly well, as it adds new elements constantly throughout the beginning that each have really satisfying resolutions by the end. Even Ricky's shirt gets its own tiny little story arc. It's layered and it's comprehensive in a way that I would say is just as good, if not better, than Kristen's tale of the Hungry Hounds. Everything from introducing Belinda and Ricky to having a ghoulish man in a terrible blonde wig try to convince a kid to burn books somehow ends up making sense while also being entertaining the entire time. I have to say, this is undoubtedly my favorite story so far. It has everything I want in an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Well, almost everything. Like, if Vink or Sardo showed up, I probably would have screamed and then just passed out. So, what else can I say? Other than this story gets a perfect 10 out of 10. It also was decently scary. I think the arm appearing behind Ricky and then that ghost hallway scene were the highlights for scares. That hallway scene is so incredible and out of nowhere, so it just enhances the scares of the moment. The Ghoul Man reveals were also really spooky, while also being kind of funny at the same time. I'm going to give the scares an 8 out of 10. And you know this one is getting some bonus points. I love how the book fills itself in as Ricky talks, and I love how the cover ends up getting a title and an author once Ricky's able to leave the dungeon. So, a good point there. I've got to give another for the first reveal of the Ghoulman as well. I didn't see it coming, but when the real Belinda bursts in, that scene just gets so wild. So, a point there. And I'll do one more for Belinda and the mystery that surrounds her. We don't know if she's a witch or just a collector of child imagination scary stories or what. And that intrigue is the kind of thing that keeps you thinking about a story long after it's over. So, a final point there, totaling 3 out of 5 bonus points and ending the tale of the Bookish Babysitter at a score of 21 out of 25 and leaving us with one of my favorite episodes so far. Now, let me tell you, I was so excited and riding this wonderful high of the season, and it only gets better, especially because the next storyteller is the man behind some of the most magical stories so far. Gary steps up for the first time of the season, promising to tell a story full of misunderstood trinkets and power beyond human control, with the tale of the Carved Stone. A girl named Allison has just moved into a new house. She has no friends and is an only child, so she doesn't even have the default frenemy that inherently comes with having a sibling. One thing of significance that I'll shoehorn in is that on her windowsill is a carved TJB was here, but we'll talk about that more later on. She sees a group of kids walking by and watches as one drops his pair of goofy glasses. So, seeing an opportunity to make some friends, she rushes outside to tell them about the glasses, only to step right on them and ruin them.
Oh, great way to make friends, klutz.
But don't you worry, because she knows where she can get some new ones. A little shop in town full of trinkets and magic and weirdness. And sometimes a rabbit named Harold. That's right, once again, we're visiting with none other than Mr. Sardo.
Are you Mr. Sardo?
That's Sardo. No, mister. Accent on the toe.
In classic Sardo fashion, he sniffs out that Allison is trying to make some new friends. Unfortunately, he can't find any of his popularity potion. Some cool kid named KC ran off with all of it last season, so instead he offers Allison a strange carved stone.
No, of course not. It's much better than a potion. It's an Egyptian friendship stone.
And of course, we get another little bit of Sardo haggling. What would a magic shop be without a magician getting swindled by his customers, right?
How much did you say this was?
Well, it is very rare and very powerful. It's practically a steal at, $50.
$50?
40, I distinctly said 40.
Forget it.
No, wait. How much have you got?
After the glasses, I've got $17 and 75 cents.
Sold. But I'm losing on the deal.
As she leaves with her new rock friend in hand, Allison passes a strange man right outside the shop. I wonder if he'll be important later on. That's called a hook. You see, I set the bait. Now just gotta keep reeling the rod. Man, this metaphor immediately got away from me. We'll see him later. We see a quick scene of Allison giving those kids their glasses back, only it doesn't go very well.
Forget this. Get a life, okay? Come on, Don.
So, obviously, the friendship rock isn't working, and Allison decides that she wants her money back. She heads back to the shop, only this time Sardou isn't alone. That strange man from earlier is now holding him hostage. He uses Sardou's voice to tell Allison to go away, and I love how this whole scene is shot. The close-up of the man's mouth while still showing Sardou is gagged, and in general, the extreme close-ups on the faces of Sardou and the man made this whole scene so strangely intense and captivating. Allison leaves, but we stick with Sardou as we see the man hypnotize him until he spills the beans on who he sold a certain carved stone to.
What have you done with me?
Later that night, Allison is figuring out that the stone is a little bit more than she expected, but she's interrupted when she sees that man hovering outside of her window. This is another fantastic shot. It reminded me of that scary vampire scene in Salem's Lot. I think I used that comparison actually in The Tale of the Nightly Neighbors too, but I mean, it's a good comparison, and I'm right. I mean, it looks like that scene a little bit. Allison realizes that this dude is trying to hypnotize her, so she covers her eyes and backs away, only to suddenly trip and fall back towards her mirror. But once she hits the mirror, instead of it shattering, the power of the stone causes her to slip through it, and she ends up in her same room. Only now it looks a little bit different, and there's a boy here named
Thomas Jefferson Bradshaw, and this is my grandmother's house.
No, this is our house. We moved in here last week.
And quickly she finds out that she's 100 years in the past, all the way back in the year 1892.
What's the date today?
March 13th.
Yeah, but what year?
What year? Don't you know anything? It's 1892.
You serious? 1892? That's over 100 years ago.
This TJB kid is also a big loner, so he and Allison end up bonding and develop a friendship right off the bat. It's so funny though, because there's this part where they're both talking about how they don't have any siblings, and then TJB just says that his parents are dead, and Allison replies with such a weirdly happy attitude.
That's my grandmother. If she wakes up, she's gonna cane me.
That's terrible. What about your parents?
Oh, they died when I was younger. I was the only child.
Really? I'm an only child too.
It's just so off, Allison. You gotta read the room a little bit better. No wonder you don't have any friends. Allison and Thomas end up returning to the future together, just as someone is knocking at the front door. And we should all be happy to see that Sardou is back, and now warning the kids about the man who's after the stone.
It seems it belongs to a rather nasty fellow by the name of Brother Septimus. He was supposed to have been hanged in the 15th century.
Then, Brother Septimus slinks out of the shadows and starts to choke out Sardou before deciding to chase after his special stone. To get away, Allison pulls Sardou through the mirror with her to put a whole 100 years between them and Brother Septimus. But they left Thomas behind, so they have to return to the present so that they can help him.
Help! I don't even know what's going on!
Come on!
Sardou goes towards the mirror with the stone in hand, only for Septimus to reach through and grab him and swap their places. Septimus then starts to threaten Allison, but then Thomas steps from the mirror to help. Only he instantly gets hypnotized, and then Septimus comes after him with a Lady Deathfinger nail blade. It's so weird that one of his powers is just having a sword fingernail. Like, he can time travel and he's got blades for his nails. Really cool, man. Allison tackles Septimus from behind, and at this same time, Thomas pulls out his sling and shoots at them. This happens just as they pass through the mirror, but Septimus was touching the glass, so when it shattered, so did he. Allison and Thomas share a final goodbye through the shards of mirror before Allison notices that the carving on the windowsill has changed to show that their friendship will remain throughout the centuries. And with that, the episode ends. What did I tell you? We're just bouncing from one great episode to another. I liked this one a lot. Last season, Gary's story just wasn't quite up to par, but with this one, I was instantly reminded of why he was always one of my favorite storytellers. The play on Egyptian magic with this strange time-warping warlock all intermingled with the story of a few lonely kids who find friendship while displaced in time is so cool and unique and entertaining. I'm gonna give this story an easy 8 out of 10. I will say it wasn't super scary, but Brother Septimus is probably my favorite villain that we've seen so far, other than Vink, but that dude is a classic of his own. He doesn't count for this. I loved every line that Septimus spoke. His delivery was perfect, and his eyes have this really creepy, bulging stare that just gazes through you. But just because he's my favorite doesn't mean he was really all that scary. He made things more intense than horrific, so I think we'll put this one smack in the middle with a 5 out of 10. For a few bonus points, I mean, at this point I don't even know if I need to say it, but Sardo definitely gets a point. I love him, I will always love him, and that's worth all the bonus points in the world to me. I'm gonna give another one for Brother Septimus, and a third for the uniqueness of this episode with a combination of lonely kids, time travel, magical nonsense, and then I'll be giving a final point for the line by the kids where they tell Allison to get a life. It was so mean, and it made me laugh so hard, so I've got to give it a little reward. So 4 out of 5 bonus points, which will leave the Tale of the Carved Stone with a total score of 17 out of 25. This is another one that I just love. Like, man, this season, it's killing it for me. So, Tucker is one of the new 2 this season, and the showrunners must have really wanted us to like him, because episode 8 is another one of his stories, and this one is called The Tale of the Guardian's Curse. We've seen the show cover quite a few classic horror tropes. Of course, we've had vampires and werewolves, we've had scary dolls, clowns, ghosts, more ghosts. There's so many ghosts in this series. And now it's time for another classic movie monster, as we see a construction crew uncover an ancient Egyptian tomb with the sarcophagus holding a mummy. This episode is centered around 2 siblings named Cleo and Josh, and their widower father who is struggling to balance his time with his kids as his work always seems to take priority. And today is no exception. While they're getting ready to go on vacation, the dad is called into the museum where he works because of this discovery of a long-lost mummy.
We have to get this to my lab now.
He and his coworker, Dr. Capel Smith, study the inscriptions and the records that they have and realize that this mummy was stolen from a pyramid in the 30s, and inside is a mummy who was thought to be the goddess of eternal life, called Mina.
Yuck.
Cool.
Magnificent. There she is. Mina, the Guardian.
In this episode, we get a little bit of back and forth here. It's pretty quick paced as Cleo and Josh cover a lot of ground and exposition and get the story rolling. First, the family heads home and the dad sorrowfully cancels their vacation so that he can continue his studies of the mummy. Josh also just drops a mean burn on his old man.
What can I say? He lives to work. He needs it.
What he needs is a girlfriend.
Josh just, man, he's got no chill. The dad tells the kids about Mina's legend, where she had a ring of eternity and an elixir of life. Oh, and a curse. Of course, all mummies have to have a curse, and Mina's was that if her tomb was ever disturbed, she'd turn her enemies to stone. But I'm sure these three are gonna be just fine. In classic parenting fashion, the dad sends the kids alone to the museum that night to pick up some pictures that he left behind, and while there, Josh and Cleo bump the sarcophagus and accidentally discover a hidden compartment, and inside they find a ring and a vial full of, well, an elixir. The elixir. The siblings argue and end up spilling the elixir onto the mummy, which I'm sure is gonna turn out just fine. They leave the room and come back to find that the mummy is gone now. They run home to tell their dad, but now they find that their home has been completely ransacked. Fortunately, the dad left a note that said that he was heading to the museum, so he must have just missed the hooligan that destroyed this place. So Cleo and Josh go back to the museum again. Like I said, it's a quick back and forth for a few scenes here. But now we're in the museum, and this is where we'll be staying, because the mummy will never let us leave.
Dad! He's not here. It's the curse. Oh man, it's the curse.
Get out of here. That stuff is made up.
Oh yeah? Does this look made up to you? It's real, Cleo, just like the legend said.
No way.
They start to smell something and realize it's the decomposing mummy, and we get one of those classic spooky fingers wrapping around the door, little scary moments.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
They end up running away and trying to hide from the undead mummy in the museum's basement, and inside, they discover that their dad wasn't their dad at all. It was actually a plant that was pretending to be their dad, and they take off his hat to find... No, wait, that's not this one. I got my scripts confused, sorry about that. Josh and Cleo end up finding their dad knocked out on top of a stack of crates, which it's kind of funny to think about. Like someone knocked him out and then had to hoist him up like 10 feet and just lay him there. It must have been such a hassle. After waking up the dad, they hear approaching footsteps, but are relieved to find that it's not the mummy at all. It's Dr. Capel Smith. But the relief is short-lived, as he reveals that he's soaked the entire basement in kerosene and will light the place on fire and kill them all if Cleo doesn't give him the Ring of Eternity. This is like the real-life Millennium items, complete with two-dimensional villain arcs. Am I right? But Cleo is smart, and she figured something out about the ring. The doctor puts the ring on and achieves eternity.
Behold, you are now gazing at an immortal.
But then things go wrong for the doctor, as his eternity is granted by transforming him eternally into stone. It's not super important, but the doctor drops his torch and Josh runs to put it out, and he does this by smacking it over and over on the ground. You know, the ground that was soaked in kerosene. Nothing happens, don't worry, but I mean, this was just not the smartest move, Josh. You gotta think, man. Now that the doctor is taken care of, the family come face to face once again with the mummy as it leans around some crates. And I love how this thing looks here. It's so creepy and weird and just kind of gross. And I love how they puppeted it. It's just such a fun little bit of animation. The mummy doesn't attack, and instead lifts its finger, which Josh realizes is it asking for its ring back. He slips the ring onto the mummy's finger, and they all watch as she transforms from her undead self into her fully revived and incredibly pretty form. As the story wraps up, we watch as the dad starts to rizz up Mina and try to get her to change from mummy into mommy.
So the true guardian's curse was immortality. And Dr. Capel Smith was the final victim. The end.
See, wasn't that worth letting him borrow it?
I guess the story was pretty good. Hey, the little toad still has my ankh.
There was a lot going on in this episode, and I'll say that I'm pretty impressed with how much they were able to fit into such a tight time frame. There was that segment in the middle where the kids went from the museum to the house to the museum to the house to the museum within like 3 minutes, but that was the only part that felt rushed to me. The rest flowed really well while still giving us a few twists and two antagonists that they had to deal with. The twist of the Doctor going bad was a little obvious because there wasn't really any other character in this episode, but everything with the mummy and the ring and the elixir was pretty unexpected. I'd say the story is a decent 6 out of 10. It had some scares, but other than the mummy, I'd say that the horror was fairly light. The mummy puppet was pretty creepy, and the way that it moved was uncanny and off-putting, but it was never malicious towards the kids or the dad, so it never really felt like a true force of terror. So I'll just be giving this episode a 4 out of 10 for the scares. And that just leaves the bonuses. I'll be giving 1 for the fun twists of the Doctor's betrayal and the mummy kind of being nice the whole time. I'll give another for the mummy puppet. Like I said, I just loved that. And I'll do 1 more for the dad seeing his chance and shooting his shot with the mummy mommy right at the end there. You've gotta respect it. So that's 3 out of 5 bonus points, giving the Tale of the Guardian's Curse a total of 13 out of 25. Before we talk about this next episode, I just wanted to say thank you for all the kind comments and for enjoying this series alongside me. What do you say we all gather around together for a quick group photo? Ah, that turned out great. Oh, we're all doomed. Just like everyone who had their picture taken in this Betty Ann story, The Tale of the Curious Camera. With this episode, we follow a kid who's a bit of a loser named Matt. His main bully rival is a kid that might look a little bit familiar because we've seen him in another Betty Ann story all the way back in season 1. This actor previously played Josh in The Tale of Laughing in the Dark. He was kind of a bozo then, but I guess he didn't learn his lesson from the killer clown, so maybe he'll learn something this time. In one of the most traumatic ways possible.
You read this book?
No.
Oh. Well, are you sure you haven't read it? Here, look closer. Guess I was wrong. The book read you. Oh no, leave it. It looks good.
After school picture day, Matt receives his photo only to realize that it's completely blank. So there must have been some kind of error. He goes to the photographer's business and tries to get a refund, or at the very least his actual photo, but the photographer just doesn't care about Matt's plight. The photographer is named Calhoun, and he's a bit of a grubby, down-on-his-luck looking guy who says that he used to have so much potential, but then stumbled on some bad luck, and has had his life pretty much ruined. He starts to act a bit suspicious as he apologizes to Matt, and then offers him an antique camera instead of just retaking his photo. But hey, free camera, so Matt is pretty thrilled.
Oh, and kid? I think it's still got some film in it.
But, of course, the camera isn't all that it seems. Matt goes around taking some photos of everything except for his younger sister.
Hey, take my picture.
Forget it. Might crack the lens.
Uh-huh.
And then he notices that all the photos he took show the objects in broken states. His shirt is covered in a large stain. The window and the picture frame are shattered from a baseball. A vase is dropped and left in pieces. The camera also has an auto timer function of some kind. Basically, it just goes off sometimes without Matt doing anything. And he leaves it on a table where it snaps a picture of his fish tank and freaking sets it on fire.
Oh, man.
Dude, that is such an underreaction. It's crazy. It's like, oh no, my water's on fire. Dude, you're witnessing a terrifying miracle. How are you so chill about this? Seeing the pattern in these things, Matt tosses the camera into the trash, but it just reappears inside his locker at school the next day, so it's not that easy to get rid of. So, what to do? Well, Matt decides to embrace the dark side, and he starts with none other than Josh.
Hey, call back! You know you're a total butthead? What'd you say? I heard you got the wrong end of a brain transplant. Any truth to that?
Let's go, gentlemen.
We don't have all day.
Seeing that the photo is of Josh screaming, Matt knows that it worked, and later that day some lockers come loose and fall onto Josh, crushing his leg and ending Matt's bully problem. At least until he heals up. But Matt isn't done, because the next time we see him, he's making a hit list of everyone that he wants to take a photo of. He's really harnessing the energy of Andy from The Tale of the Dark Music, just immediately being down with taking people out for a little bit of power. While working on the hit list, Matt tells his sister Amy about the camera, and in doing so he accidentally snaps her photo. But then he acts quick, and just as a chandelier is falling, he tackles her out of the way and saves her from the photographic tragedy. Digging through the pile of photos, Matt and Amy notice a small figure of a gremlin in each picture, and finally, Matt decides to head back to Calhoun's shop for some answers. This scene is so fun, and Calhoun is such a funny character. His shop is all cleaned up now, and when we see the man himself, he's like super duper cool now, because it turns out that the camera was the reason for all of his bad luck, and now that it's gone, he's starting to take off in the world.
I had that camera for 20 years, and for 20 years it gave me nothing but bad luck. I give it to you, and voila! Bad luck gone, and the phone's ringing off the hook.
He also says that Matt can never get rid of the camera as it chooses who it wants to belong to, and now it's chosen Matt.
It destroys everything it shoots. Don't let it destroy you.
When he gets home, the door suddenly opens and the camera goes off, snapping a photo of his parents, only it's now replaced with a really brutal looking car crash. These next few scenes are pretty intense, but also have these like really perfectly stupid, hilarious cutaways with the parents in the car. Each time they're just fighting over the temperature controls. Like I said, it's so dumb, but it made me laugh every time it came up. Matt and Amy try to destroy the camera to save their parents, but it just keeps reappearing once they turn their backs. And then Matt has a little bit of inspiration. He sets up the camera in front of a mirror, hoping that by taking a photo of itself, the camera will destroy itself, and, well, it works. The camera disappears, and they get a call a few seconds later from their parents, who are using a totally sick car phone, by the way, but they say that they were almost hit by a truck, but in the end, nothing happened, and they're just fine. So, all problems are solved, right? Wrong. The gremlin from the camera somehow leapt into Matt and Amy's camcorder, and now it's trying to get the best shot of them so that it can kill them, I guess. But they just hide until eventually, for some reason, the camera and the TV just explode. And now, the day really is saved, and Matt and Amy head outside to see their parents. But we do see that the gremlin escapes once again, and now haunts the newfangled World Wide Web. I liked this episode a lot, but I will say, it's not going to be getting a very high score. Mostly, I just thought this one was really funny. There were so many silly little moments and characters that it kept me very entertained the entire time, and just laughing and smiling like a bozo as I was watching it. The story isn't anything that we haven't seen before. It's a great telling of a cursed object, and the photos are a fun way for Matt to realize the dangers and also seek opportunities. It reminded me a lot of a mixture of The Tale of the Twisted Claw and The Tale of the Captured Souls. It was good and well told, but nothing super special, so I'll be going with a 5 out of 10 for the story. It also wasn't very scary. Like I said, I found this one really funny. I don't think it was really trying to be a big horror story. The gremlin is like maybe a little bit kind of sort of spooky. I think really the only scary bit was the kids freaking out because they thought that they killed their parents, but that wasn't much of a scare, honestly, so I'll just be going with a 2 out of 10 for the scares. For some bonuses, I'm giving it 2 points because this episode made me laugh so much. I also loved Cool Calhoun a lot. Like, he's the raddest character in all of television, hands down. And I'll give another for crushing Josh's leg, because that kid was a bit of a butthead in the previous episode too, so he really needs to learn some humility. And I'll do a final point for the scene of the fish tank. Everything about that was so perfect, so an easy point there. Leaving this with a 4 out of 5 bonus point score, and ending the tale of the curious camera with a total of 11 out of 25. Earlier in the season, Sam showed that she would be rivaling Betty Ann for her title of Horror Queen. We haven't heard from her in a while, but with this episode, Sam takes the storyteller seat again, but this time it feels more like she's rivaling Kristen by focusing more on a story, setting us up with a tale of true love that turns deadly. This is one of those episodes that people often remember fondly, so let's dive in and talk about The Tale of the Dream Girl. We focus mostly on a boy named Johnny and his younger sister, Erica. They both work at a bowling alley where Erica is a waitress and Johnny is an underappreciated maintenance worker. One day, Johnny finds a school ring in his locker, and out of curiosity, he slips it on his pinky, only to find that now it's completely stuck. Then some weird things start to happen. That night, Johnny's mom comes in to tell Erica to go to sleep, but completely ignores when Johnny calls goodnight to her.
Jeez, what's the matter with her?
Oh, she's got a lot on her mind.
Yeah, I guess so.
And when he falls asleep, he dreams of a girl calling out to him, and he finds that for some reason he can't stop thinking about this dream girl. At the bowling alley, he sees another girl that looks a lot like the dream girl, but when he tries to ask her out, she completely blows him off. And Johnny gets a pretty bad run in this scene because he talks to his manager only to have him also ignore him and then brag about how he won't be hiring any new maintenance men to help out because he wants to save on some cash. But he can't dwell on this for too long because he hears the voice of the dream girl calling his name. She says that her name is Donna, and Johnny follows her voice as well as small glimpses of her throughout the bowling alley before she completely vanishes and her voice is drowned with the sound of a crossing train, followed by screams. He goes home only to find a letter from Donna asking him to meet her in the bowling alley after closing.
You gonna go?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I should, but man, I have a really weird feeling about this. You have to see her, Erica. She's so beautiful.
Despite the weird feeling, he's also drawn to this dream girl, so he decides to meet her as the letter asks. This scene reminded me a lot of the tavern scene from The Tale of the Whispering Walls. There are a few different people in the bowling alley, all of them clearly ghosts and each of them from different time periods. Plus, they're listening to some swanky jazz that just makes the bowling alley feel like it's a place from out of time. After a few minutes, Donna finally arrives.
I hope I'm not late.
They dance together and she tells Johnny that the ring that he found belongs to her, but after a few minutes, she suddenly says that she has to leave.
It's almost time to go. I want you to come with me.
Where? You just got here.
Donna runs from the bowling alley, and when she leaves, Johnny notices that all of the other ghosts have gone as well. And now we get a little reveal, and it's done in such a funny way. Erica asks Johnny if the Donna that he's been seeing is the same as this picture that she has in the newspaper. The article tells of Donna's death. She and her boyfriend had their car stall out on some train tracks. They ran from the vehicle, but Donna forgot her ring and ran back to get it. But she didn't make it.
She was driving with her boyfriend, and their car stalled on these railroad tracks just out by Waterloo Road.
I know that's not a funny reveal. The funny part is how Erica unfolds the newspaper to show Johnny. It gets funnier in a little while, but this is just the setup. The next day at work, Donna shows up again, and when Johnny tries to offer her back the ring, she says that that's not what she really wants.
Don't you understand? It's you that I want.
He tries to tell her off, but that night she calls again, and this time Johnny angrily tells her not to contact him anymore. As the ring now falls off, Johnny gets a small sense of guilt, and he decides that he needs to help the ghost move on by returning her ring to her grave. In the graveyard, we have a few quick Easter eggs that I want to point out. You can see a headstone with the name Ron Oil. This was used in Kiki's story last season, The Tale of Old Man Corcoran. It was a play on the name of the director of that episode. And we see another grave that has the name Vink on it, that's dated from the 1700s, so pretty neat. While in the graveyard, Johnny feels strangely attracted to one plot, and reaching down he uncovers the name of Donna on the headstone there. But that doesn't make sense. How could he have known where this plot was? Well, Erica has the answer.
We knew exactly where she was buried, Johnny. Why do you think that is?
Look, I don't know what you mean.
Maybe you've been here before. Did you ever think about that?
She tells Johnny the story of Donna's death again, only this time, Johnny's able to remember it as if he were there. He hears the screams and the blaring bells of the train crossing, and he realizes that this is his story. The story of how he and the girl that he loved died together. Brushing up the headstone more shows Johnny's name is carved underneath Donna's. And then Erica unfolds the newspaper even more to show Johnny's face in the article. I laugh every time I see the newspaper unfold here. Erica folded it in such a funny, elaborate way for these multiple reveals. It just gets me. I know it takes away a little bit from the sad moment, but it's so funny to me. But as funny as the reveal is, the scene is so sad and well done. Erica tells Johnny that after his death, he just showed up again one day, but only she could see him. Thinking back, we realize that Johnny's mom, his manager, that girl in the bowling alley, they weren't ignoring him. They couldn't see him because he was never actually there. Erica was his only connection to the world, and she wishes that things could stay like this because even though her brother died, he's still here with her, and she doesn't want to lose him again. But ghosts don't belong in the world of life. From the fog, Donna steps out again and calls to Johnny, and he and Erica both know that it's his time to go. They share a final hug and a final goodbye, and Johnny gives Erica the ring to remember him by. And then he and Donna reunite, and they walk off together into the fog. This episode is so sad, but it's so good. Nowadays, the trope of the main character being dead the whole time is somewhat popular, and if you're someone who loves to guess at plot twists, then that's probably one of your go-tos whenever you see a character being ignored in any way. I think the trope really became popular after The Sixth Sense. That plot twist was so devastating that I remember hearing about it when I was in elementary school. But The Tale of the Dream Girl came out in 1996, 3 years before The Sixth Sense release in 1999. So a plot twist like this was really unexpected when it happened. The story is incredibly memorable and has so many great reveals as it's told. It's also one of the better acted episodes. Both Johnny and Erica had very emotional moments, and I won't lie, I got a little bit misty-eyed at their farewell scene. I'm gonna give this one a nearly perfect 9 out of 10. However, Sam really was harnessing her inner Kristen because this episode wasn't really scary. I think the ghost could have maybe given some kids a jump scare back in the day, but I don't think I'd call this a horror episode whatsoever. It's only going to be getting a 1 out of 10 for the scares. For a few bonus points, the plot twists of Donna and Johnny being dead was great, so 1 there. I'm giving another for the acting, especially with Erica in that final scene. That's one of my favorite acting moments in this series so far. And for making me laugh in moments when I should have cried, I have to give a point for the folding of the newspaper. It's so dumb, especially when you think back on how Erica must have set it all up for the eventual reveal that she gave to Johnny. So that's gonna be an easy point, which totals 3 out of 5 bonus points and leaves The Tale of the Dream Girl with a total score of 13 out of 25. For episode 11, we get to hear from Kiki as she tells us the tale of the Quicksilver. And this one starts off so strong and scary, it's kind of crazy. We open with a girl that we see is doing some kind of strange ritual that summons a freaky demon man into her room. But things go wrong immediately, as she tries to capture the demon into a gem, A candle falls and lights the room on fire. She tries to run, but the demon locks the door, and then we fade away to see a new family is moving into this house, and two brothers named Aaron and Doug are taking the same room where this girl died not too long ago. I hope the house is on sale, because, well, it comes with some issues. In the middle of the night, the boys are woken up when their beds start to shake. Then they notice all of their stuff has been stacked in one corner, and someone has painted a green Q on top of the wall. But somehow they're able to brush off the scares, and they head right back to sleep.
Mom said no scary stuff.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, sure.
At school, Aaron meets that same girl that we saw in the intro and learns that her name is Connie. Also at school, Aaron is continuously haunted. His stuff is thrown to the floor, his desk starts to fly for a second, his pencil is moved just slightly out of reach. Like, I'd be so annoyed if I were haunted like this, just a small inconvenience ghost that drives you mad. Connie and Aaron start to flirt it up a little bit, and in a totally throwaway line that's definitely not gonna be very important later, Aaron mentions that the necklace that he wears is made of pure silver.
Cool necklace.
Huh?
Your necklace. I like it.
Oh, yeah, it was my grandfather's.
It's definitely not important, guys. It's definitely not important. That night, Aaron has a dream where he seems to astral project.
Wow. Cool dream.
And then he's able to witness the ritual that we saw in the intro. Just like we saw, the ritual goes wrong. The fire starts, but then the girl turns to Aaron and speaks directly to him.
I was wrong. I did it wrong. No! What's going on?
Oh, man. I just had this nightmare.
At this point, Doug starts to get sick, but the brothers can't dwell on it because the ghost grabs Aaron's necklace and drags it across the room. When he leaps to grab it, Aaron discovers a board with a small compartment inside, and in there is an old yearbook that opens up by itself to show a picture of Connie. Only there's two of them, and one of them is named Laura. They're twins. There's also another Q that circles Laura's picture. Then that same creepy demon dude shows up and almost gets the brothers. But their parents wake up, and when they do, it scares the demon away. This episode covers a lot of ground in not a lot of time, so I'm sorry if things seem a little bit sporadic for the next few scenes. Doug stays home from school, and he ends up reading in his book that's just titled Ghosts. It's such a creative title. But he reads that there are certain poltergeists called Quicksilvers, and they're actually nice ghosts, and they leave a letter Q behind the places that they haunt. We know it's nice because the ghost ends up filling up Doug's water for him. At school, Aaron asks Connie about her sister, and we get the story of how she died, but we also learn that Laura had started to get sick, and she claimed that there was a demon in the house that was causing her illness.
We only lived in that house a few weeks. When Laura started telling everyone she thought it was haunted. She found out it was built over an old cemetery or something.
Aaron tells Connie that he lives in her old house, and that now his brother is also sick, so it must be from that same demon illness that Laura had. And when Connie doesn't believe him for like 2 seconds, he's so brutal and blunt with how he gets her to help.
I'm sorry if this is mean, but you didn't believe her the first time, and look what happened.
And now back at the house, the beds start to shake again and spill Doug's water, so we know that there's still a demon that's bad, but also there's that Quicksilver that's good. And Doug, like, frantically screams this when Aaron and Connie enter the room.
Ah! Aaron, you won't believe it! There's two ghosts! A good one and a bad one. The Quicksilver was here, but the bad ghost came and took over!
I know. It's okay. Relax.
What's she doing here?
She's gonna help us get rid of the bad ghost.
So now comes the ritual part 2. Just as we saw before, Aaron and Connie draw a doorway on the wall and summon the demon. But just like with Laura, things go wrong immediately. The demon isn't stunned by their silver spoon, and it walks right over to Doug and just snatches him up in an instant. But then it comes back for Connie and Aaron realizes that this spoon isn't silver. But you know what is? That's right, the necklace. I bet you didn't see that one coming. He straps the necklace onto the warding branch and says the incantation, and this time the ritual goes off without a hitch.
Gregarious Locaredet, I command you, enter the amulet!
What a ride!
Doug reappears, and now he's completely healthy. And just in case the tale of the Dream Girl didn't give you your fill of siblings having to say goodbye to each other, we learned that the Quicksilver poltergeist was Laura's spirit the whole time. She appears, and she and Connie have a final farewell. And that's the end. I don't know why this show is trying to make me think about my siblings dying and me having to say goodbye to them, but let me tell you, I don't appreciate it. That's for sure. This episode was pretty good, but it did have some issues. For the story, it felt like the sort of scenario that the phrase biting off more than you can chew was made for. They covered so much ground, giving us lore of ghosts on top of a twin plot twist on top of clues about the final ritual, and all topped with the fact that there was a demon and a Quicksilver haunting the brothers. It was just a little bit much, and made it feel like some scenes were kind of crammed in there. It's a great little story of fighting demons and helping your loved ones move on, but I think it could have shaved off a few elements to help the flow out just a little bit. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10 for that story. It did have some decent scares. The demon creepy man thing was pretty scary every time that we got to see him, and we got to see him quite a bit. He also won in the scene in the intro, so we get the sense that he really is dangerous, which makes him even more scary. Then there's also some of those poltergeisty ghost scenes that were pretty scary, especially with their bed shaking and their stuff being all stacked up. That scene felt like a classic ghost movie to me. I'm gonna go with a 7 out of 10 for the scares. For some bonus points, I love all the effects that they used in this episode. They're fun and creative. I love the way that the demon is sucked into the gem, and the astral projection scene with Aaron putting his arm through Laura, and even the twin stuff at the end where, it's clearly just one actress acting against a spliced scene that turned out pretty good, but it was such a fun little effect. So I'll go with 2 out of 5 bonus points for those, which will leave the tale of the Quicksilver with a total score of 15 out of 25. And let's hope that the next one doesn't have a sad scene of people saying goodbye, because my little heart can't take it. Although, there is something else that just might put me in my grave. A story of another killer clown. But instead of being told by Betty Ann, this time it's Gary's turn to enforce a little bit of coulrophobia. That's a fear of clowns. At least I hope it is. I looked it up for this video, and I kind of just went with it because I thought it made me sound super smart. And it's working, right? Anyway, let's see if Gary can match the frights that we felt from Zeebo with The Tale of the Crimson Clown. One of the themes that we start to see from Gary is the trope of an older and a younger sibling. Most of the time, the younger sibling ends up being bratty while the older one gets blamed or does something to teach the younger sibling a lesson, and that's what happens in this story. Mike is a good boy. He's polite and thoughtful, which contrasts everything about his younger brother Sam, who's a straight-up hooligan. And tomorrow is their mother's birthday, so they head out to secretly buy her a birthday present. Or at least Mike does. Sam doesn't really care. In fact, not only does he not care, but he ends up stealing all of Mike's money and heading to the toy store, where he buys a copy of the latest video game, Zeebo's Big House. So now Mike can't buy the mom's present because Sam stole all of his money and the toy store is closed now, so they can't get a refund. To teach his younger brother a lesson, Mike looks up at an incredibly creepy placed clown doll, and he comes up with a story. The clown here, like I said, it's really creepy, just giving sneaky glances behind the China dolls, which are also terrifying. It's some really good nightmare fuel, and Mike must think so too, because this clown is the tool that he uses to try and scare his younger brother.
Whenever you get snotty with somebody, whenever you hurt someone, whenever you're selfish or insult somebody.
Yeah, I better not pout, I better not shout, because Santa Claus is coming to town.
Sam, whenever you're bad, and that means when you steal. The Crimson Clown is watching you.
It might seem like just a story, but as Sam stares at the clown, its eyes light up. And then when they leave, the clown has suddenly disappeared. Back at home, Sam blames Mike for them being late, and while their mother chastises Mike, Sam heads upstairs to play his new video game. Or at least he tries, but he's interrupted by the Crimson Clown. This is something that's going to be happening a few times. The clown scares Sam, but will vanish when someone else enters the room. So, is it imaginary? Or is it just sneaky? After dinner, Sam is watching some TV when the clown decides to show itself again. Only now, it's in an even scarier way. The lights all turn off and the TV changes channels, and then an elongating arm reaches from the screen and slowly moves closer to Sam.
Dude, you're next.
He's only saved when the mom and Mike walk into the room and tell Sam that now it's time for bed. When he gets to his room, Sam sees the clown for just a second, but it vanishes a moment later. Also, we see a Sonic 2 poster on the wall, so I always imagine that the clown just ran away really fast. You know, he's got places to go, he's got to follow his rainbow and all that. You know what I'm saying. As Sam falls asleep, we get one of my favorite transitions in this series so far, as the bed and blanket fall away and leave Sam stranded in a nightmare inside of the antique shop. He tries to leave, but the doors are locked. Then he hears someone coming up behind him and sees the shopkeeper, only now with a giant clown head walking towards him.
You know what we do to kids like you?
He gets wrapped up, but then wakes up, only he's still trapped in his bed. Then the shape of the clown creeps up through his covers and nearly gets him, but it vanishes. He goes to wake up Mike, only Mike's not there.
It's the clown, Mike! It's the Crimson!
Nobody will help you, Sam. Nobody wants to.
And the nightmare isn't even close to being done yet. The clown makes more appearances, showing up glaring from the window, wrapping Sam in more thread and nearly dragging him into the closet, and ending only when the clown walks through the bedroom door and reaches for Sam as he's begging for help and swearing that he'll change if he's given another chance.
You're a bad kid. No one wants to help a bad kid.
I'm sorry for everything I did. I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
I am. I'm sorry I stole Mike's money and ruined Mom's birthday. I'm sorry. Please give me another chance. I'll be good. Give me another chance.
And then the nightmare actually ends. The sun rises and Sam is relieved to see his older brother is no longer clowned up, and they head downstairs and celebrate their mother's birthday together, and that's where the episode ends. Clowns, huh? Man, this show knows how to truly use them to honk some fear into children all around the world. I think the story of this episode was kind of just there. The episode clearly didn't try to tell a compelling story and rather focused on what they could do with great horror scenes. The story we got was fine and simple. You know, two brothers feuding until they both realize that they need to change a little bit. Mike with not teasing his brother so much, and Sam with just, not being the worst, I guess. I'd say it's a very middle of the line 5 out of 10. But the scares are so good in this one. Every scene with the clown is pure horror, and there are a lot of scenes with the clown. The doll that they used is decently creepy on its own, but then you get the arm coming out of the TV, and the shopkeeper with the clown head, and Mike's head being replaced and then exploding, and then magical silk that captures children, and the angry stalking final moments of the nightmare. It's all so good and way scary, and I think without a doubt, it deserves full marks. I'm going with a 10 out of 10 for the scares. I did love a lot of the scenes in this episode as well, so for some bonus points, I'm giving 1 to that scene of Mike's clown head exploding. It's so fun and creepy at the same time. I'll give another for that rad Zebo game. I love seeing stuff like this in these episodes. And I'll do another for how much we got to see of the Crimson Clown. It made me so happy that he just kept popping up. A lot of these episodes tend to save the monsters for more particular moments, and it's not bad, but when I see a great and spooky monster, I just want to see it more and more, and this episode really scratched that itch for me. So, 3 out of 5 bonus points, leaving the tale of the Crimson Clown with a total score of 18 out of 25. You know, all of these stories, all of these scares have really made me hungry. Fortunately, this next story is all about food, the most delicious and refined and dangerous soup. Frank gets the honor of finishing up this season by telling us the tale of the dangerous soup. For a little taste of what's to come, this episode opens with an unnamed guy who's trapped in a freezer. A statue of a gargoyle emerges from the wall, and we hear a mysterious and yet somewhat familiar voice taunting him from the shadows.
It knows what scares you.
But that was just a sampler, and now we cut to a restaurant sometime later. We can hear customers raving about the restaurant's special soup, and it has to be delicious since they charge $100 per bowl, and have a rule that you can only have 1 bowl per customer. And as for that mysterious voice, we're shown who it belongs to when the chef walks from the kitchen.
Guests, your admiration of my humble fare is most appreciated.
Dr. Vink is back, and after finishing his study of flora and fauna and mastering the craft of filmmaking, it seems that he's taken on the challenge of becoming a master chef. In this episode, we mostly follow a hostess named Nani and a new hire to the restaurant, a boy who says he's not afraid of anything, whose name is Reed. Of course, Reed is skeptical about this crazy chef man, and even more when he hears that this man is also a doctor.
What's this place like?
It's okay. Dr. Vink is kind of...
Dr. Fink?
Vink with a v.
And he's even less impressed when he actually meets Vink.
Come!
Looks like a nutbag to me.
Vink takes the new hire around the kitchen, raving about the craft of food making as if he were an artist and the dishes were his finished paintings. And his magnum opus is the soup. Of course, Reed doesn't believe him until he's given a taste.
That's pretty good.
My friend, the flavor dances over the palate in a symphony of sensation. That's far from pretty good.
And he charges $100 a bowl.
Get out of here.
A small price to pay for the sublime.
Wait, let me have another taste.
1 taste to educate the palate.
They go over the rules of the restaurant, and Reed is hired with a few final words from the Dr. Chef.
And I am not a nutbag.
Reed works for a few days and notices that the restaurant is pretty normal, except that randomly people will just quit. But a job's a job. Then, one day, when he's alone in the kitchen, he decides he wants another taste, and he sneaks a spoonful of the soup. only he's caught like right away.
Did you taste my soup?
Fortunately, Nani was hiding under the table for some reason, and she covers for Reed and says that he was just cleaning. Reed thanks her, and they start off a bit of a friendship, something that Reed is clearly not used to, as he's always been alone in life and has never had anyone to watch his back.
I mean, for everything. You've been really cool to me since I got here. And, I've been kind of a slug.
While Reed and Nani are friending it up, Vink is speaking with another hostess and says that he wants to show her his secret ingredient. He locks the girl in the freezer and opens up a cabinet with a strange green elixir inside. Just as we saw in the intro, the wall opens up and a gargoyle statue emerges from that wall, and this time a swinging blade lowers from the ceiling and inches closer to the waitress. As she screams, drops of liquid enter the vial. But her screams also alert the nearby Nani and Reed, so they rush in to figure out what's going on. They push Vink aside, but when the girl exits the freezer, she doesn't remember what happened inside.
Man, it's like I blanked or something. I gotta get out of here. Jersey.
Needing some answers, Reed and Nani confront Vink, and he tells them the story of his dangerous soup. But it all starts with his travels around the world. He tells of a tribe that used fear against their enemies, harnessing the power of a demon inside of a statue to manifest those fears into reality, which also caused a liquid version of that fear that the tribe would drink to become strong. Vink somehow stole the statue and realized its potential, and thus he made his delicious and dangerous soup.
A single drop is enough to make the pulse quicken and the blood flow. When you taste my soup, you're tasting fear. And that's a taste you won't soon forget.
But remember, Reed is a tough guy, and he's not afraid of anything. He goes into the freezer after Vink teases him a little bit, and then he realizes that he actually does have a deep fear hiding inside.
It knows what scares you. What have we here? What lies deep inside? I'm seeing a scared little boy. An orphan.
I'm not buying this.
Raised by an uncle. He was a cruel man who treated you very harshly. What happened to him, lad? Yes. Remember now, don't you?
A coffin appears in the freezer, and when Reed opens it, he sees the corpse of his uncle. But then it opens its eyes and begins to grab for Reed. Nani hears Reed's screams and opens the door, which was a big mistake, as this beautiful graphic of the gargoyle rushes from the freezer and escapes into the night. Even though Vink is a total nutbag, he knows that this is really bad and the gargoyle will start to torment the entire world, so he heads out to try and recapture it.
I must stop it. How? I don't know. I just pray I'm not too late.
But it turns out that the gargoyle didn't get too far and has decided to torment Reed and Nani. They try to run, but it blocks the exits of the restaurant and then begins to manifest their fears all around them. Nani is pushed by a scary wind into the freezer, and she's afraid of confined spaces, so this is already pretty scary for her. And the gargoyle just wants to make it worse, so it starts to close in the walls all around her. Reed can't do much, so he kind of just tries to cheer her on from the sidelines.
Face your fear, Nani! Face your fear! Face your fear! It can't get you!
Then he realizes that maybe he can help. He goes to the other room where he sees his uncle's coffin. It opens and the undead Unk reaches out, but Reed decides it's time to face his fears. He lunges forward, and as he confronts his uncle, it vanishes, and this seems to diminish the power of the gargoyle.
It's all over. I faced my fear. I broke the spell. I don't think Vink's gonna be making any more of his dangerous soup.
But with Vink, things are never that easy.
I plan on being in business a long, long time.
And that is where this season ends. I think this is one of those all-time classic episodes. The title alone is so silly that the fact there's an actual scary twist to it makes the reveal so much more effective. I also love everything Vink, so a story of him starting up his own restaurant, using an ancient tribal demon to make soup, just fits his insanity, and it's elevated by his incredible performance. I like the idea of the characters having to face their fears, but I love even more that their fears end up becoming a delicious ingredient. It's so fun and pretty funny. I'm gonna give this one an 8 out of 10 for the story. And of course, this episode was literally about fear, so it did end up having some pretty decent scary scenes. Everything with the uncle and the coffin ended up pretty intense. There's also a lot of scary snakes that make appearances, and the claustrophobia of Nani's fear was shown really well. It's not the scariest episode in the world, but it had some good moments, so I'm going with a 6 out of 10. And then we got the bonus points. And who among you is surprised that I'll be giving the first one to the nutbag doctor himself, Vink?
I am not a nutbag.
He's always my favorite part of his episodes, and I mean, he's in this one so much and has great lines. I love him. I'm also going to give a point for the title and the concept of this episode. The dangerous soup is such a funny idea, and it's always stuck with me. And I know I just gave a point to Vink, but he's in this episode so much, and he's so good. I'm gonna give him another point, so 2 points for Vink. And I'll do a 4th point for the top-of-the-line graphics used for the gargoyle. All 3 of those graphics were great. So, 4 out of 5 bonus points, which will leave the tale of the dangerous soup with a total score of 18 out of 25. So, here we are. Another incredible season behind us. I was so surprised to find that a few of my favorite episodes actually came from season 3, and while we may miss Kristen and David, both Tucker and Sam told some great stories and proved that the Midnight Society is moving forward and creating new memories and friendships as they grow. I will say, this was probably the saddest season that we've had so far. The season started off with that farewell of friends, and then we had episodes like The Tale of the Dream Girl with the siblings saying goodbye, and The Tale of Apartment 214 with its guilt-ridden lesson of an abandoned elder, and then The Tale of the Quicksilver with even more farewell to siblings. They were really pulling at my heartstrings with this one. But it's great to see how this show grows just like its audience, showing more complex emotions and deeper life lessons in each episode, and each in-between scene with the Midnight Society. This show really is one of the best that we've ever had. So let's talk about the stats and figure out the best scares and stories in this season, as well as in the series so far. First off, since both Kristen and David are gone, we can finalize their scores and place them in the Hall of Remembrance next to Eric. Kristen ends the series with an average score of 14.8 between her 5 stories told, and she'll always remain as one of my favorite storytellers in this series. And David ends with an average score of 12 between his 5 stories, and he gave us the tale of the shiny red bicycle, so he will be missed. And now for season 3. As with seasons 1 and 2, I've kept a running total of everyone's score, scare, bonus, and total points. In this season, every kid got to tell at least one story. But once again, Frank was given the least amount of time in the storyteller's seat, as he only got to tell one story, the tale of the dangerous soup. But once again, we also had a tie for the most stories told of the season, as both Tucker and Betty Ann told 3 stories each. Gary, Kiki, and Sam were each tied in the middle with 2 stories apiece. My least favorite story of the season goes to the newcomer, Tucker, with the tale of the Midnight Ride, which scored a 1 out of 10 and wins the unfortunate title of being the first episode in the series that I genuinely don't like. However, we did have my favorite story of the series so far in this season as well, with Betty Ann's tale of the Bookish Babysitter, which scored a perfect 10 out of 10. The least scary story of the season goes to Sam, who followed in Kristen's footsteps by giving us an amazing story that wasn't really scary at all, with the tale of the Dream Girl. But for the first time in the series, we had not only one, but 2 stories score perfect 10 out of 10s for their scares. The first with Sam's The Tale of Watcher's Woods, and the second with Gary's The Tale of the Crimson Clown. If I had to choose between the two, I'd say that The Tale of the Crimson Clown is a bit more scary to me. Watcher's Woods had some more classic feeling horror with gore and monsters and witches in the woods, but the Crimson Clown has the edge due to some of the psychological terror that the clown used against the younger brother. It's a slight advantage, but it does give it the edge for me. Taking all the points together and adding up all the story, scare, and bonus points, my least favorite episode of Season 3, very unsurprisingly, goes to Tucker with The Tale of the Midnight Ride, which only got a total of 5 out of 25. And my favorite episode of the season goes to Betty Ann with her incredible Tale of the Bookish Babysitter, which really just ticked every box for what I look for in an episode of the show. Before we get into the averages, I want to compare these scores to those of the previous seasons. My least favorite episode used to belong to David with The Tale of the Hatching, but Season 3 takes that title away with its 1 out of 10 score on The Midnight Ride. Before this season, my highest rated story went to Kristen with The Tale of the Hungry Hounds, but Season 3 stepped up the storytelling, and now Betty Ann will take that #1 slot with The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter's 10 out of 10. We've also got another tie with the scare scores, as previously The Tale of the Captured Souls and now The Tale of the Dream Girl both scored a 1 out of 10. But to break the tie, I'll say that The Tale of the Captured Souls feels a little bit less scary to me, so that one is going to keep its title of the least scary story so far. But we've got to crown a new scariest story and, funny enough, scariest clown for the series. Previously, The Tale of Laughing in the Dark scared me the most with its terrifying killer clown, Zeebo. But Gary stepped it up a notch and masterfully scared us with the new highest ranking in The Tale of the Crimson Clown. My new least favorite story of the entire series so far belongs to Season 3, with The Tale of the Midnight Ride, and I've already talked about that one way too much in this episode, so nothing more to say on that. But this season also wins my new favorite episode. In Season 2, I loved The Tale of the Full Moon. It was weird and funny and stylized, and this season gave us an episode that hit all of those marks and more, with Betty Ann's The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter, which I just loved through and through. Everything from the awful babysitter haircut to the floating ghost just hit me perfectly and gave us the new highest score of 21 out of 25. And now, let's see where everyone is placed by adding up their scores and dividing them by the number of stories that they've told so far to determine the best scary storyteller between these 3 seasons. In last place, we've got the new member, Tucker, who scored an average of 11.6 between his 3 stories. Next, we've got David, whose final score of 12 between his 5 stories placed him firmly towards the bottom. He's followed by Eric with a score of 14.5 between his 2 stories, and then Kristen, who holds a 14.8 between her 5 stories told. Next is Kiki, who now holds a 15 between her 5 stories. And then we have something kind of strange, because we have a 3-way tie for second place. Gary, Betty Ann, and Frank all averaged a score of 16. Gary and Frank each have 5 stories, and Betty Ann has a whopping 8 stories in total. And that just leaves our new first place storyteller, Sam, who averaged a score of 16.5 between her 2 stories told this season, and giving her the title of the best storyteller in Are You Afraid of the Dark so far. And with that, we can wrap up the season and can declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed.
I declare this meeting of the Midnight Society closed. Whoever you are.
I love this series so much, and I've got to give a big thanks to all of you guys for watching and enjoying the series alongside me. I've gotten so many kind comments and have met some really cool people, all due to this little link that we share from our childhoods. These videos do take a lot of work to make, so if you enjoy, then please like and subscribe, and consider joining all of these lovely people by becoming a YouTube member. It's only a couple of bucks a month, and I'll be sharing some exclusive behind-the-scenes updates for members only. It's not going to be a lot of content, but you'll get some sneak peeks and edits on future projects. So thank you to Igor DaCosta, Shelly March, Reaver Approach, Zed Suzuki, Kurakula, Super Suplex, Quibby, Bogmeyer Sandman, and Stu the Human. Also, a huge thanks to you super chatters. I've been blown away with your generosity, so seriously, thank you so much. And yeah, that's it for this video, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!